Hello and welcome to this digital juice tutorial. My name is Flo from flomotion.eu. And today we are going to take a look on a product from Digital Juice called Toxic Templates and how you can use those templates to create your own look and how to customize them and also how to add some stuff to it. So at first I'm going to show you how to get started with the juicer in general and how to get started with your template file. After that I am going to show you how to use the stroke effect and how to work with masks and passes, as this whole animation is based on this line, this stroke, which is walking all through the frame. In a third step I'm going to show you how to create this silhouette look and how to replace other objects with this new one. And after that I'm going to go through a few steps to create a final look, and I'm also going to add light and music. So let's do this! At first you have to open up your chooser, which is the library from Digital Juice. Here you can find all the different projects, animations, music and all that nice stuff from Digital Juice. So I'm going for the projects and templates. And I'm going to After Effects projects. Here I can select which product I want, and as I want to show you something from the Toxic Template collections, I'm selecting the Toxic Template collections. Now I directly see all the templates which are in there, and I can just click on them to get kind of an impression what they will look like later on. And sometimes I just take a look at all of them to get inspired. So, and after I have clicked on a few of them, I found that this one really looks nice and that I want to work a bit on it. So when I open it up by double clicking on it, I can directly see that there are also different versions of it. Like this 2D one, and this one goes really into depth. Looks really nice, and I think I will work with this one here. So I'm just clicking on the AE, the After Effects button, send project to After Effects and open as new project. I could also import it into a current file, but for now we just want to open it as a new one, and I click on Send Now. Now it opens up the project, and let's directly save this one. Save as. And let's just go to the projects folder. I have already the 001 version here. So let's call this one 002 and hit save. And now I just give you a small overview over the project and what it looks like. You can see all the different layers here. You can see that there's an animated camera, and this one is also connected to a null object which drives the animation. But you can directly see by the number of the layers that there are many layers missing in here, and this is because this button here is enabled. It says hides all layers for which the shy switch is set, and this guy here is the shy switch. So let's just quickly click the shy button, and there we have all the layer, and as you can see there are over 120, actually 121 different layers for this project. And just that you get an impression, you can just select all the layers, hit the U button, and there you see all of the keyframes which are in the project. So as a good starting point, you may just scroll through the timeline and somehow get an impression of your whole project. You can also go inside some of those pre-comps by simply double clicking on them. I will quickly open up one of those clouds layers here. And you can see all of this is also animated, and all of this is made in a Photoshop file. If we hit the U button again, you can see that all of this is also animated in position and scale. And what I did with the clouds is that I simply replaced them with some nodes. And then I had the whole animation with nodes and not with clouds. So let me quickly show you how I did that. You just click on one of the layers, and to go to the Photoshop file, you can just click with the right mouse button and open Layer Source in Project. There you have it in your project window. And then you can simply go with the right mouse button again, reveal in Explorer. There you have it in the Explorer, and just open it up with Photoshop. So here we are in the Photoshop project. You cannot see it quite good right now, so let me just enable a background. I have already created a node instead of a cloud inside the cloud layer. So when I enable the other ones, you can see that there are all those files from the project in it. Some leaves. So you can always go back into your After Effects project, and there you see the name and the layer of your clouds in this case. So it's layer 2, element 2. So in here it's the project is called element 2 and it's layer 2, and there I have my node. And so you can just go on and directly start creating your own stuff. So let me quickly hide this background layer again, and I'm going to save this one as the original one. It asks me if I want to replace it. Yes, I want to. Okay. And back in After Effects, if I now click on the element again and click on Reload Footage, you can see there are now all those nodes inside my project, and of course they are animated. And back in my final project, you can see that there are everywhere where the clouds have been, there are now nodes. And this is really cool because this clouds layer is used so often. And here's another small tip. Select all the layers which I have adjusted and go to the color and just give them a different color so that I can later on easily find them again. When I scrub through it, I see all those brown layers, and there are my clouds. Another thing I did when I was doing those clouds, I just found that they are somewhere around here, all those nodes, but then they disappear and I don't have them all over here. So I can just duplicate them by selecting all of them and hitting Command D for duplicate. Now I can just bring them over here. If you can't see those markers for all the layers, you can just hit Command Shift H, and there you have them. And as I colored them blue, I can directly see that this must be all of those here. And then I can just bring them back into view. And by the way, I'm just zooming in and out in the composition with my mouse wheel. And now I already have nodes everywhere. And of course they are animated. What you normally would do at the end of an animation, I do it at first. I start adding some small details. As far as I come to a point where I really have to create some own stuff. And as I wanted to do something with this stroke effect, with this line, which is always animated through the whole composition, I directly thought about a musician's cable, which is always going through the frame. Another thing I have done is when you take a look at the beginning here, you can see that there are some birds flying around. And I also went inside of this composition and just adjusted the wings of the birds a little bit so that they looked a little bit like bats, just as a small detail. And I especially love these details which you can't really see, but they really help selling the shot and help selling the look and feel of the whole animation. Now let's just get over to the stroke effect and to the masks and passes. As this whole animation is based on this stroke effect, which is always walking through the frame and doing his stuff, I'm going to show you how to use the stroke effect, how to customize it, how to make it look like a cable, and how to handle with masks, passes, and the stroke effect in general. So you can directly see in the composition that you have all those strokes layers here. And you see that they are basically just masks, which are drawn, and the white line is following those masks. So this time I'm not going to show you this effect inside of this already made composition, but I want to show you how to build this effect from scratch. So let's create a new composition and call this one cable stroke and hit OK. Now we're going to create a new layer, new, solid, and make this one white, just that we have a background, and we can directly call this by clicking on it and hitting the return button, BG for background. And by the way, you can also create a new layer, a new solid, by hitting Command Y. And now I'm going to do that to create a new one. Maybe we make this one blue and call it cable. Oh, let's just make it black because we're going to call it cable black. And we're just doing this because later on we're also going to create a cable white layer. And now what we have to do is we have to draw a mask in the same way we want our cable to be later on. And just have in mind, you wouldn't have to do this in your digital juice composition because all those masks are already created for you. See all those strokes layers? If I hit the M button for mask, you can see that there are already masks created everywhere, and the camera and the whole animation is based around those masks. So I really just show you this one in a new composition that we can focus a bit more on this one. So let's just quickly create a mask. And I want my cable to have many curves so that you can see it a bit better, and it should maybe end right here. Now we go back to our selection tool, or we just hit the V button, and there we have it. Now let's apply the stroke effect to it. We go just to the effects and presets window and write stroke. And there we have it. We either could bring it out here now or directly on our cable black layer. Okay, what can we do here? By default, you can now not see that much because our brush size is just 2. And this is about the same size like the mask itself has. So if we hide the mask with this button here and go to full resolution, now you can see this stroke. But as we have said, we want to make a cable in black. So let's click on the colors button and make it black. And now we can't see anything because our cable is on this black solid. So for the paint style, we just click on transparent, and now we just have this line and nothing else on the layer. But we want our cable to be way thicker. So let's type in 20 here. And there we have our cable. And that's already everything we have to do for our black cable layer. So we now can just duplicate it by hitting Command D and call this one cable white. And as we want this to be white, by the way, we don't want to make a white cable, but all the white stuff in the cable is somehow the light reflection and that it looks a bit more three-dimensional. So let's just make this cable white. We click on the color and make it white. And now you could play a bit with it. You could make it thicker or thinner and already start creating nice and interesting looks. But for that we just leave it at the exact same size and just make it white. And we're going to apply some other effects to it now. First we start with a simple choker. And we bring it out here. And the simple choker just makes it thinner. So you could also do this with the stroke effect, but I just want to show you a few more effects which you may want to use in the future. Okay, now we have this black cable and this white cable. It's already starting looking better, but really not like a realistic cable. And now we bring out an effect called matte feather. This effect is designed to feather the alpha channel. And as you can see here, this is exactly what it does. Go about 22. And it's already looking a bit more three-dimensional. But let me tell you something, the matte feather effect isn't something that is built into After Effects, and it comes with the key correct collection. So another way to achieve this one could be with the channel blur. So we take the channel blur, and as we have created this stroke effect on transparent, we now have the ability to feather the edge between the white and the transparent, and so to say the alpha blurriness. So let's bring this out about 10. Now we can play in combination with this channel blur and the choker to get the look we want. Let's bring this up to 32 and the channel blur to 16. And maybe we choke this even more, like so. And now it really looks three-dimensional. Another thing which we can do now is that we go on the cable white and simply reposition it. So let's bring it up a few pixels and to the right a few pixels. And now we have this three-dimensional look we wanted. We can now take the bevel alpha effect. And if we now play with the light intensity and the edge thickness, you can see that it somehow gets more of a light direction because the fading is way smaller over here than to the other side. But of course this is really just a very small detail to the overall look. And there we have our cable ready to go. But of course we would have to animate all of this. And this is in the final composition already. Also done for you, and it's done with the stroke effect. But let me quickly show you a few tips about the stroke effect. For that I'd hide the cable white, just go to the cable black, and there you have it. You have a starting point and an end point. And the end point is of course at the end of our mask, and the start point is the start of our mask. So what we could do is simply animate the endpoint. And let's just go forward about 100 frames and click on the stopwatch for the endpoint. And at the beginning, we just type in 0. And there we have it. Now our cable is created like in the final composition. And what you could do now to animate all of this in the right way and in combination with the cable white, you could just open up both of them, go into the stroke effect, hold down the Alt key and click on the stopwatch of the end for the cable white. And as you want this to always have the same values, you can go down here to the cable black and take this pick whip onto the end parameter. If you just let go, we get a nice expression which tells us that we now have always the same values like the cable black. If we bring this together again and take a look at it, you can now see that both of the lines are animated in the same way. And this is exactly what we wanted. And now let's just bring out the plug for our cable. You can just go to the project window and double click in it. And there I have it in my toxic templates folder. In the pictures folder I have a picture of a plug. And I just bring this one into a new composition by holding down the left mouse key and just drag it over this new composition icon. And I quickly mask this one out. Okay, there we have just our plug, and now I just wanted to position it right, and for that you can just hit the Command R button and you get this ruler out here, and if you go into here with your mouse and just drag and drop, you get those blue rulers. And by hitting the W button you can rotate the plug, and with the arrow buttons you can now position everything the way you want it to be. Next thing is to always keep your compositions small, so you can go onto this icon which says region of interest, and you can somehow crop the whole composition with the plug. And now you can go up to composition, crop comp to region of interest. And now your comp size is way smaller. Okay, let's close this one. Go back into our cable strokes and bring the plug in there. So we can just type in here plug, and there we have it. And bring it out here. So the first thing we have to do now is to get the anchor point, which is the point around which it rotates, scales and transforms, which is normally directly in the middle, in the center, but we have to bring it down to the bottom of our plug, because for a plug this is the point where it rotates. So to do that we just click on the pan behind tool, and now just bring it down here. If we now hit the W key, you see that it rotates around this point. And now we can just bring it into position to get the first impression on what this looks like. It's a bit big, so we just scale it down by clicking on the plug layer, hitting the S button for scale. Just scale it down a bit. As you can see, it doesn't stick together, so you would have to manually keyframe the whole animation. I was wondering how you could automate this and how you could track the stroke effect. And I came up with two different ideas of tracking the stroke effect. And I quickly show you the first one, which I didn't took because it just took a bit more time than the second version. So let me just quickly show you the first idea which I had to track the stroke effect. And for that, let me just quickly hide the plug and the cable white so that we just have this stroke. And of course, with the After Effects tracker, we can't track this beginning point to get a position out of it. But what we could track is something that is moving in that position, but we don't have it. So what I did with this one, I went into the cable black composition, and this is a bit tricky. But let me just quickly show it to you, and after that I'm going to show you a more simple way. So if we go into the stroke effect, you have the start and the end point, which I already told you. So the start animates from the start. So what if the starting point would always be 1% behind the endpoint? Then we would have just this small dot which is moving all over the composition, and we could easily track that with any tracking software or with the built-in tracking software of After Effects. So for that we just have to use a small expression. If we now hold down the Alt button and click on the start stopwatch, we want this to have the same value like the end button. So we take the pick whip and bring it over the end. And now the start and the end would be the same. But we always want this to be a little bit behind the end position. So what we can do now is we have it in the same position, and then we just type in -1. Now it's always -1. And what we have now, we have this small point here. And to get even more tracking data, you could duplicate the whole layer, shrink it down a bit, give him a different color, or make a smaller white stroke effect in the middle of it so that you have more contrast. And now really every tracking software should be able to track this one. And later on, you could just go back to your plug layer and apply this rotation and transform and position data to the plug, and you're ready to go. But as I told you, it is a bit tricky to use those expressions, then to go into a tracking software or to use the After Effects tracker. This all takes time. So let me just quickly reset this, and I show you how you could do this way more easy by using masks and passes. We just now go into the mask of the cable black layer, which is the same mask than the cable white. And we go to the path of the mask. We click on it and go to Edit, Copy. And now we have copied the path. And now we want this to be the position of our plug. Just click on the plug layer, go to Position, Edit, Paste. And there we have it. Exactly the same position path than our mask. We now just have to adjust all of those keyframes. So let's just go until the 100 frame mark where the stroke effect ends. And if we hold down the Alt key and just drag this last keyframe to the end, all of the other keyframes go just with it. And there we have our plug animated to the stroke. Of course, it doesn't show in the right direction, so let's just go to the first frame and position this one right and rotate our plug right. And now we just go to Layer, Transform, Auto Orient, and there we have the orientation of the plug according to the path, and we want to orient along path. And hit OK. Quickly rotate it right. And there we have it. Our plug is following the cable. And if we turn on the cable white again, we have all of it set up. And this is exactly how I did the animation. And just think about all the possibilities you could do with this kind of effect. You could have, for example, a treasure map where maybe a red cross is following a red line, or just think about the Indiana Jones movies where you have the world and this small airplane is flying all over the world just to see where Indiana Jones is at the moment. So some really cool tricks about masks and paths where I'm really happy to share them with you. But now let's go on. Okay, so far so good, but we are not finished yet. We have customized a few things, we have brought in our own stuff, and now let's bring this even further by creating those nice silhouettes I had in my original file. So for that I just took a few pictures of me jumping with my guitar in front of a white wall, and I quickly tell you how I did that. So let's just double click into our project window again, and there we have this silhouette, and we bring it out there by bringing it once again over the new composition icon. And there you have it, it's me jumping in front of a white wall. And as you can see, this is not really perfect, there's a lot of motion blur going on. You can see this shadow because I had to use a flashlight. But I didn't want to do this that professional because I wanted that nearly everybody could create their own silhouettes by taking some pictures. So, but you have to be aware of some things. First is that you need to have a contrast between you and the background. So this is why I shot the photo in front of a white wall. You can see there are some mistakes I made. For example, the white on my shoes has the same white like the background, and of course the shadow because of the flashlight. But we can get rid of all of this and maybe even take our benefits out of that. So at first we have to get more contrast in this picture. Just type in contrast because we want more contrast. And we bring out the brightness and contrast. And when we are playing with the settings, you can directly see what will happen. Of course, we can quickly grab our pen tool and mask me out. Okay, and now we just tint it. Now let's bring the brightness and contrast behind the tint. So you can see this works a bit better. And now we can play with this a bit more until we have a look that we like. So, and now you can see that the white in the shoes really helps selling because this is a nice effect which comes along. And to transform this into a nice silhouette, for that you now just have to click on your layer, go to layer, auto trace. And here you have a few settings. Of course, we want to trace our luminance channel because we created this black and white image. A nice feature is this preview, so you can watch over here what it does, and it creates a new mask around my body. Another nice thing to do is to blur it a bit, because otherwise the mask will have way too much points. You can just play around a bit. The tolerance makes everything more smooth, but of course the further you go with this, the less you recognize the original picture. So let's just bring it back to 2. Same thing with the threshold. The more you bring it down, the more detail you get, but the more edgy and curvy it looks, and you don't want to overdo that. So let's bring this one up again to 80. And what we will also do is enable apply to new layers, so you get a completely new layer with just the masks on it. And you can directly see that we have many points. And we can now shut off the original layer. And we can also delete this one mask by simply double clicking on the line and hit the delete button. There we have this white silhouette of me, and according to which color you want, you can of course tint this And there you have it. You see that we have a few mistakes, but as this one is a mask, you can really go into all of this. Of course, you could play a bit more with the auto trace settings. You see that we really get many details in here. You could also play with the minimum and maximum pixel size to avoid this. And there's another trick which you could use. And this is just a trick if you have the plugin. It's called Alpha Cleaner, which also comes along with the key correct plugin. If we bring this one out, you can decide if you either want to remove specks or plug holes. And in this case, I want to remove the specks. It's just a nice plugin to clean out something like that, or a key or something else. And once again, if you don't have the alpha cleaner, you could maybe come away with choking. So just type in choke, maybe take the matte choker. And there you have it, without the matte choker and with the matte choker. And if you play a bit with this one, you can get a nicer result. And now it's time to position the silhouette in the final version of the template. So we have to find a nice point where we want to have it. Maybe we want to have it instead of this tree which appears here. So let's take a look if we can find this tree. Let's just type in tree. And there we have it. But what I want to do now is I just want to bring it a bit more over here so that I can see it a bit longer. Maybe even over here. Yeah. And let's try to find this girl and hide her. And it is this movie file here, so let's just hide it. We also don't want this guy, and it is frame number 6. So let's just hide it. Now we go back to the tree. Over here. And we're searching for our silhouettes now. Bring it out here to the tree. Then we have to make it a 3D layer because our tree is also a 3D layer, and now it is just somewhere out of the frame. We just go to the tree layer, hit the P button for position, click on it, Command C for copy, click on the silhouette layer, Command V for paste, and there we have it. S button for scale, make it smaller, bring it in the position we want to have it later on. Of course we want it to hide the tree, and now we just parent it to the tree. In this way we also have this nice animation going on at the beginning, and if we turn on motion blur for this layer, will even look nicer. And that is how I did the silhouettes and how I connected them to the final composition. So now at the end of this tutorial, I'm just quickly going to show you a few final touches, which I normally do. Just a few small tips on how to achieve a good final look. At first, some nice colors. And I always do this. So I quickly shy all the other layers, and I normally just do this with an adjustment layer. So make a new adjustment layer. And this is where I make my final color corrections. So for example, a curve. To get more contrast into this. Maybe also tint this one, as we want this to look a bit more like a rock and roll animation. Let's maybe make this dark blue. Of course, we don't want it to be 100% because we want to have some color in it. So we bring the amount of tint down a bit. This is already looking nice. Maybe bring the curves behind that. Above all that, you can already see that this has a nice vignette, but with our tint effect we have also tinted the vignette. So let's just make a new layer, new solid. We make it black and just draw a nice vignette. By the way, if you want to have a really symmetrical vignette, you can just delete this one. Take the ellipse tool, and as you don't want to do it by hand, you just double click on this button. And there you have this nice ellipse. Go on the mask path, make it subtract, feather it, bring the expansion down, maybe bring those points in a bit. And bring down the transparency. So by hitting T for transparency or T for opacity, just bring it down a bit. This is the first thing which I would do for the look, but I wanted to go even further because this should be a rock and roll style of animation. So I also had to bring in some music. And this is also from the Digital Juice collection. It's called In Your Face. I'll just bring it out here. And now I wanted to animate this whole thing to the music. So what I did for that is just click on the music. By the way, you can hit LL, so L twice, and then you can see the wave form of the music. So you can already bring it somewhere where you can see that there's something going on. And now I just click on the music with the right button, go to Keyframe Assistant, convert audio to keyframes. This brings up a new layer, and there I have this effect for the left, right, and for both channels. And we don't need the right and left because I want the animation to go with the rhythm, which is of course in both channels. And when I now scrub through this, you can see it at the slider. Or maybe we just click on the slider and go to the graph editor. And let me quickly zoom in. Now you see that I have the audio values transformed into a curve. And this is exactly what I wanted. So I went to the zoom, hold down the Alt key, clicked on the stopwatch, and now I want the camera zoom plus the value from the audio slider. But I want it plus this one. But I want it times 2. So I just made brackets around the expression I got and just typed behind that times 2. You can't really see it. Maybe we just overdo it quickly by typing in times 10. And now when I make a quick RAM preview, now you can directly see that it is moving to the beat. Perfect. And the last thing I did is I created a new light. Because everything here is 3D. So let's just leave it at the defaults for now. And you can, if you want to, always play around with the settings of the light. And what I did here, I also created a nice expression. And you, of course, you could also animate the intensity to the music, which would also make the light pop up to the music. But what I did here is I just typed in a wiggle expression, which is wiggle 4.20 or so. We quickly overdo this also. You can directly see it. Now you can see it on the white line. Everything has its really cool light look, and of course you could play around with the light color and stuff like that and really start creating a very own look. So that's everything that I have done for my animation. Let me just tell you something at the end, because I had a few text lines in there, and those text lines were also created with the digital chooser. So I quickly show you this. If we go back to the chooser and go to fonts, I have my digital chooser fonts installed here, and I just opened them up and looked for the ones I wanted, and it was the metal hatch. So I just opened it up, looked for the one I wanted, which was this one, the brushed steel, went into the settings, and here you can, by clicking on the edit text button, you can type in everything you want. You can go to the layout and choose which format you want. You can choose the size. You can go over here and customize the look of your letters. Then just go to render selected or render all. You have to define where you want to save it. And then you are ready to go. So maybe the most important thing which you have learned in this tutorial is that you should always have some digital juice stuff, because it helps you really a lot. And what also helps you a lot is simply go to the digital juice page, digitaljuice.com. There you can find all those nice projects, music, sound effects, animations, stock footage and stock images, of course the digital juice fonts which I have just shown you. So really great stuff up there. So after you have now watched this tutorial, please do leave a comment on this page, and by that you get the chance to be entered to win a free prize. So just write something and benefit from it. And if you have watched over the whole page, over all the products, just feel free to also go to my page, flomotion.eu, and there you'll find a few more After Effects tutorials, a bit of my work, and just get inspired by it. So, but now I just have to say thanks for watching, and now just open up your templates, start customizing, and start playing with After Effects.